I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Commissioners Finance Committee to order this morning at 11:06. Would you please call the roll?
AJ.
Rahman? Long?
Here?
Howell? Cavell?
Here.
Charles?
She'll be back.
Commissioner Smith Charles? Okay. Wiper?
Here.
Hoffman?
Present.
Markham?
Here.
You got the quorum.
Okay, let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the June 7th and June 15th meeting. Take a motion, Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Any comments, additions, deletions? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
Yeah, we have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries, minutes are approved. Next is the approval of today's agenda. Moved by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Rahman. I want to check here because is the schedule up to date with Aaron Cattell's presentation having been moved? Is that the Economic Development Corporation grant?
It's the grant, yeah, under section 8A, is the Economic Development Committee recommendations, Executive Office, Michigan Economic Development Grant.
That's the one we wanted to move up to the beginning of the meeting so that Ms. Cattell could.
Correct.
Okay, so this agenda has been adjusted. Anybody have any other adjustments to it? Okay, seeing none, let's prompt the vote then, please.
And can people online hear us now?
Can you hear us?
I got a
Yes, you're on mute.
Okay, get the mic.
Great.
We can hear you.
All right,
I got a
thank you.
message, I just wanted to make sure. Sorry.
All right.
I'm sure you have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. Next, we have public comment. Is there anybody from the public who cares to address the committee at this time? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and move on to communications. Item 7A is the Oakland County Pioneer and Historical Society Garden Project update. We only have one item under communications today. Anybody want to make a motion? Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Cavell. All right. Go ahead and prompt the vote, please. On item 7A. File. Right.
Oh, I just approved it.
I'm sure you have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have item 8A. Under Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations, fiscal year 2023 Michigan Economic Development Corporation grant with Oakland County grant acceptance.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Okay, so I think we're ready for you, Ms. Cattell.
Hi, hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I am excited about the conference, so thanks so much. I am here to just present the MEDD Education Grant of $1 million. for EV infrastructure deployment on county-owned properties. As mentioned at EDI, for 20 dual board charging stations level 2 at a variety of locations, including courthouse, outside of DOB, outside of DOC, and Waterford, Oak, and Lion Oak. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
This is
Okay.
the last one, right?
Any from the floor, Commissioner
Does
Powell?
this make you happy?
Uh-huh.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been on these projects.
This is basically $1 million from the state to install charging stations, which we already had a plan for where we wanted to put them, so this is all good. Free money to do what we want, all lined up. Commissioner Cavell?
There's no match to this, right?
Nope.
It doesn't look like.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there a match to this?
No, there is no match. No, this is part of the budget process at the state, and so it's just money for us to utilize.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Whitebird?
Just came through economic development, Charlie. And so it's a reimbursable, so we spend the money and get reimbursed, and the first part's gonna be 500,000, and then 90% done, when you prove it, you get the balance.
Thank you.
Is that right, Aaron?
Yes, that is correct.
Very good. Okay. Anybody else have questions or comments? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote, please.
Get that Mustang. I want it. I do. I get one to those Chargers.
I'm sure you have 78s.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Next up, we have
That's why I didn't get that.
motion carries. Thank you, Aaron. Have fun at your conference. Bring home good information.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, next up, we have departmental recommendations. First one is item 9A, donation of surplus testing equipment to Oakland Community College. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Long. Is there anybody here to talk about this one?
Anonymous custom machine donated.
As I understand, oh, hi.
Sorry. I'm here to talk about it. I'm Mary Koger. I'm the assistant chief for the Wall Lake Novi and Commerce wastewater treatment plants.
Okay.
The Wall Lake Novi facility has a lab that tests for most of our permit limits for both the Wall Lake Novi and Commerce wastewater treatment plant facilities. As such, it has an on-site laboratory. One of the pieces of equipment is this Auto Analyzer 100. It previously tested for heavy metals as part of the lab's normal operations many years ago. However, it hasn't been in use for about a decade. This is because there have been some changes regarding the ECO requirements. So now that that has happened, in the last decade, we started sending out these to be tested at various third-party labs. So this actually presents an opportunity, though, for us to give back to our communities in support for further education and water-related career paths. So we're recommending that in lieu of disposal of this equipment, that we are able to donate the surplus asset to Oakland County Community College.
It's like a state law thing.
That's good.
It's a good thing.
That's good, yeah, for sure. We need more water quality engineers and folks to support the whole system here in Oakland County, so that's great. Anybody have any questions or comments?
No?
Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
I'm sure you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent, motion carries, thanks very much. Next up.
Thank you.
Next up is item 9B, the amended fiscal year 2022 deficit elimination plan. Moved by Commissioner Whitebird and supported by Commissioner Powell. And we have our finance department here. Good morning.
Hello. I know this probably looks familiar because you guys have done this once already. But it's been a couple years since I've done a deficit elimination plan and the state kind of changed some of the requirements on me. So I neglected to include the actual budgets of how the elimination is gonna budget out over the next year or up to 5 years. So, and the things that changed with the state is they've got some feedback from commissioners that finance departments were submitting these elimination plans and commissioners weren't seeing them. So they've added the requirement that they be recorded and a miscellaneous resolution be approved before they can be submitted to the state. So I've had a conversation with the state, they're expecting this. So everything that you see, the resolution is exactly the same. The added portion to the document are the budgets for the 3 items that were in a deficit, the 3 funds. And showing those going out of deficit within the next, the longest is year 5 will be out of a deficit for the lake levels, and everything else we anticipate being out of deficit this fiscal year. And this is Shannon Lee. She is my chief, part of the fiscal team. I wanted to try and bring my team so that they can have some exposure to the commission and how it works as we try and make sure that everybody understands what fiscal's doing.
Well, thank you. Welcome today. We really appreciate you being here and reporting to us. Commissioner Wyper.
And when Deputy County Executive Carlson came through, he told two of these, or most of them are because of reimbursements. So while deficit elimination plan sounds like, oh, is there a big problem? It's the timing on reimbursements. So it's
Absolutely, and all of them are the timing on reimbursements. The friend of the court, they're all grant related. And so some grants, as you mentioned earlier when you were talking about the state, some of them are reimbursable grants, so we spend the money up front and then we get the money back. We had some nuances with the new system. You know, we changed the fiscal accounting system in the middle of the fiscal year. So as we were cleaning things up, we found that there were some things that should have been recorded and we didn't record them as unearned revenue. So they kind of offset that, so it looked like there was a deficit. But it's really just timing, because we can't include a revenue that's more than 60 days out of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out.
Anyone else got any questions? Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, I'm curious to learn more about, and if you have this information, great. If not, happy to talk offline. But the part about the Bush Lake, there's a $300,000 loan. ERC approved back in 2010. What is the county's long-term revolving fund? Where can I find that in the budget? How much is in there? What can we use that money for? And has the $300K come back? Or is it a forgivable loan? Especially because it says that this costs more.
Okay, so I apologize, Commissioner Cabell. I thought that you had been given the answer to this, but I haven't.
Yeah, that's okay. Right, because it came up last time, right?
Right.
Just double
So
check.
the long-term revolving loan, and forgive me, I'm reading because I'm not a long-term revolving loan fund expert when it comes to this area. The long-term revolving loan fund was established to provide limited loan amounts to communities to finance their water or sewer projects that do not require an issuance of bonds, which would be $300,000. It's not necessarily significant to a local. The limit of the allowed loan was originally $150,000, but it raised through specific project resolutions to $300,000. The Bush Lake project is complete and received the loan, and then those loans get paid back by special assessments. So this was just, there were some overruns of that project. So the special assessments needed to be readjusted so that they could pay that back the full amount.
Okay. And so this loan fund is for water projects that are below the bonding level that's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's like it's a revolving loan fund in the sense that there's a limit. It's kind of like an equity loan on your house.
Okay.
You say, okay, you can take out $300,000 and you take it out as you need it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to take the full amount out and pay the interest on it for the entire time. Let's say you need $100,000 this year and $100,000 next year. You can take it out in installments like that. So that's why they call it a revolving loan. And so then as your loan grows, the payments increase, and that's how the payments get out of line with the special assessments. But it's very similar to an equity loan on your house that you take, you have a limit and you take out like to do your bathroom and then you're gonna do your kitchen.
So has this, and this might be again talking more offline, so I don't mean to keep everybody, but like, I mean, a lot of communities are trying to dip into their general funds for lead line replacement, right? And that's not enough money to bond, but you know, it feels like the same sort of thing. Or in Royal Oak Township, right, just trying to make the water work. Is this something that can or has been used for that?
I
Or-
don't know any locals that have used the revolving loan fund. It's
Other than
typically.
Bushley, which is a local something or another, right?
Right, well, it's actually a county project.
Uh-huh.
So when I say locals, I mean CVTs,
Sure.
sorry. I don't know that any of them have been able to utilize this revolving loan fund for lead lines. And I was at a CVT when all of these unfunded mandates came down from the state. And I know that we were looking at a whole bunch of ways to try and fund, because I was in an older CVT that had a lot of lead lines, as you know.
Yeah.
And if this would have been an option or a legally available item, I'm sure that it would have come to the table. Now, I didn't specifically research it, but just kind of going on my gut, I don't think it's
Okay.
something you can use that for.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Please prompt the vote on item 9B.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Powell. Got it. Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, excellent. Next up, we have item,
everybody-
thank you for
thank you.
coming.
Thank you.
Next up is item 9C. It's like this is out of the IT department, creation of application of and client services director, infrastructure services director, and 3 business relationship managers. And then deletion of 2 application development directors, deputy CIO, IT supervisor, and IT project manager. And if I can count, that says you're eliminating 5 positions and creating 5 positions. And we'll start there.
All right.
Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Commissioner Smith-Charles.
All right, well, thank you all for teeing that up. I know this is our meaty one, and then I think I have 5 extensions, so you might be seeing me here for a few minutes. So for some may remember Mr. Ken Tice, Sean Carlson brought him in, I don't know, what, 9 months ago, 6 months ago, to kind of do an analysis of IT for improvement opportunities. And this is one of the main outputs of that study, so I did not want to steal the credit for Mr. Tice's good work. I've asked him to come and kind of present the findings in detail to you. But yes, essentially, it's a little bit of an IT reorganization. It's budget neutral, since, as you know, we balance the budgets. The goal of this is to try to get a little more efficiency and effectiveness, I think, in our application delivery space, and then provide some more consistency on the kind of the technical side of the house. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Tice.
All right, well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Really glad to be here. Just want to make sure that I can handle this technology. It's not going up and down.
They said it was tricky.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's try.
If you just want to,
Okay.
if you can guide me
Yep,
through.
I can do it.
Oh, there you go, that'd be great. So really, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you today. I had the opportunity to work with all the different departments early on in this assessment of looking at how we can improve information technology and make it more effective here within Oakland County. One of the clear things that I heard from the different departments is that they were frustrated. They were frustrated with IT. They didn't know who to go to in IT specifically for specific reasons or for specific things. So they were very confused on who do they go to other than the help desk. They were very confused about, you know, what's going on with their projects. There's lack of transparency and a whole number of different things. And there's a best practice that was implemented across most IT organizations almost 15 years ago, and that is the creation of business relationship managers, and we'll talk about that today. Want to talk to you, what we talked about is we have two separate application development organizations and we want to consolidate that for a whole host of very good reasons. Recreate the Director of Infrastructure positions, and then, as Rod said, this is a cost-neutral proposal, not adding any net cost to our operations. If you want to hit the next slide. So this is a really important slide to talk about, what are the different organizations that information technology focuses on today. Obviously, the county executive and a lot of the administration organizations. We have obviously the Board of Commissioners and are really what we would call more external stakeholders. And then we have our first responders. And the reason why that's important is because we want to make sure that we have an IT organization that is organized around those key clients, those key customers. So the next slide talks about the BRM role. And the BRM, the business relationship role, really is that focal point and that individual that really helps the departments and IT come together, and they stay very much focused. So anything the departments, the sheriff's office or any department needs, they would go directly to that BRM. That business relationship manager would then work within the appropriate organizations within IT to make sure that they're getting done what they need to get done on behalf of the different department. So again, it's really about bringing the business and technology together, enforcing that integration and holding everybody accountable. So the next slide talks a little bit about the BRM. It enhances the relationship with the customer. It enables the business to drive the initiative. So one of the major focus or frustrations of a lot of the departments is that there's a planning process, but it's really difficult for a department to get their projects put in to the queue and get IT to be focused and work on them. And there's a lack of visibility of those projects. And the BRM will be working with each of the departments that they're responsible for and providing that information to them on a daily basis. Builds a trusted relationship and provides a single point of contact for services. And again, the three BRMs would be aligned to the three different types of customers that we have. Our internal, the administration customers, the external stakeholders, and the first responders. And the BRMs are ultimately accountable to those different departments who are their customers to ensure that IT is meeting their needs. Today, there is a lack of accountability in IT. There isn't that single individual that's ultimately accountable for making sure we're meeting the needs of the Human Resources Department or the Sheriff's Department. You had a question?
Yeah, can you give examples like internal, external, and first responder customers or stakeholders?
Yeah.
Because from what I
On the
understand,
previous slide.
IT's, what's it called, single source, right? Or that all the customers for IT are county departments.
Mm-hmm.
So what is an external stakeholder?
Well, and it's maybe just kind of a bad name, but if you want to go to the previous slide, if there's a way we could do that.
Did I go to the,
Previous.
Yeah, the previous slide, yeah.
let's do that. This one?
No, the one below.
One more, number 3.
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Right there.
That one. So external stakeholders might not be a great name, but it really is folks, that are outside of the administration, right? Critical individuals, obviously, the Board of Commissioners, the county clerk, the courts, the Sheriff's Department, Treasury, WRC, Parks and Recs are some of the examples.
Thank you.
Yep, that's a great question though.
And then the first responders, I wanted to ask about that, your head was a little bit in the way. So it's all those police departments and stuff that are out there that we service.
That's correct. So the Clemmis community, right? It's the entire Clemmis community. Yep.
I'd love to have a conversation about that sometime later.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, my question was somewhat about the external stakeholders part. You said it, maybe it's not the best name. It's definitely not, because I don't feel like we should be external.
Yeah.
If anything, we are the rubber that meets the road.
Absolutely.
And so, to your point, I mean, I don't know, maybe we were asked at some point about our opinions about technology, but the lack of ability to quickly spin something up for the board is troubling. And hopefully I mean, when I hear BRM, I dare not say that. It feels like we're just a little more top-heavy, you know. But, you know, let's finish your presentation.
Yeah, but no, you hit it right on the head, though. You're bringing up a great point. What you're talking about, your frustration about I can't get what I need from IT in a very quick and nimble and agile way is exactly what we heard across all the different organizations. So the BRM is ultimately the person that actually pushes and integrates that within IT and holds them accountable. Today, that role doesn't exist. And in most organizations, IT organizations, the BRM role is a best-in-class function that was implemented over 15 years ago. Why, you know, Oakland hasn't done it in the past, I can't speak to that, but it is a critical role that will alleviate a lot of your frustrations. The other thing is the departments not only want to get their stuff done today, they want to have somebody that can sit down with them and say, where should technology be going in the health department? Where should the sheriff's office go as it relates to technology? Help me strategically figure out where we should be going. And so that BRM plays a very critical role, not only in the day-to-day operations, but helping them understand how to better leverage technology. Because they'll tell you, we don't, you know, the department directors are like, we're not IT experts, but we need people that can help us figure out where we should be going. Yes.
And if this is gonna slow you down more, I can.
No.
But to what you just said there, then the BRM's potential role to help, for example, you said the sheriff, right? So
Yep.
helping the sheriff and other Clemis users that are first responders. What was the county executive gave everyone in Oakland, every police department in Oakland County free Clemis transparency dashboard memberships for like 2 years.
Yep.
But only like 5 departments around the county out of the 44 policing agencies took that up.
That's correct.
And the sheriff's transparency dashboard is after like 14 clicks. So is there a way to, would the BRM have the role of serving the sheriff in that they're helping take the sheriff's or other Clemis users, like what we really want to focus on is X? Or is it the county executive says, well, we'd really like more police departments to have a transparency dashboard on the front of their police website, so we will help you do that. Who's guiding who? Is it like an accounts manager that's just trying to service a customer to keep like the sheriff's office or health department happy?
Yeah.
Or is it the county executive would like to see these things happen, so we're gonna help you get to the future with these things?
Yeah, and I think the BRM plays both roles, right? I think they play, you know, whether it's the day-to-day stuff, but this is where we're going. And they also are very influential in helping the administration push the administration into areas that the clients and the customers want us to go or need us to go in. So yes, I think that is a critical role, so I think they do both.
Okay.
BRMs are very important and critical positions because they help really connect the business and the technology together. So technology, to be very candid, has always been kind of built from the inside out. And this forces IT to really be built from the outside in. So it's really positioning itself to truly support all these different clients and making sure that they have input and drive and prioritization of what IT actually works on.
Okay.
Yep. All right, I'm ready to go forward. So the first part, obviously, you can go to another slide. The first part, and you can actually go to 2 more slides. First part is really the BRMs and creating 3 BRMs to line up to those 3 different clients. And your comments about the name of external stakeholders is very valid and it's easily changeable, and we will address that. The second part of the transformation really is to take a look at the organization today. And there's 2 application groups. These are people that design, build, operate, enhance, and support our current computer systems, right? The systems that are out there. So one today really handles really everything across the enterprise with the exception of Clemis. The other one focuses on Clemis. And so what we want to do with these 2 positions, right? Because if you take a look at it, they're doing the exact same thing. right? But they're in kind of two different silos, and they're not able to leverage resources and skill sets and knowledge across the two organizations. So the next slide, what we want to do is we want to consolidate that into one organization. And so we want to bring those two organizations into one, and that's going to help us optimize a whole host of different things. So if you go to the next slide, the next slide talks about it expands our skill sets across the enterprise, right? So now, rather than having a team of 35 and a team of 85, I've now got a single team that I can now cross-pollinate as it relates to different technical skill sets across the enterprise. Better leverages technical resources. I can leverage them across the enterprise and across the different teams, increase our throughput. The real challenge in IT organizations is getting things done and holding people accountable. So this improves our overall accountability, our ability to get more things done, and obviously improve our customer satisfaction, which is really what this is all about. Okay, the next slide. The next slide is to talk about, we want to recreate the Director of Infrastructure Services. This is the person that ultimately supports our data center, our servers, our storage devices, our networks across the enterprise. And we want to be able to recreate that leadership position to make sure that our focus and energy in modernizing those technologies to ensure that when our clients do want changes, that our back-end infrastructure, our back-end servers and hardware are able to accommodate it. This is, you've heard a lot about the cloud. A lot of this is helping us move to the cloud to become more nimble and more agile. And to be very frank, more secure. Yep. And I think we have, I remember one more. Yep. So again, this is really what the ultimate organization would look like, right? The 3 BRMs are over there under the customer relationship model, right? We have one for internal customers, one for the new name that will come up with external stakeholders and the first responders. And then rather than having 2 application development organizations, we consolidate them into one. And the infrastructure services director is there as well. So that's what it looks like. That's what the ultimate recommendation looks like.
Okay, thank you. We'll line up the questions. We'll start with Commissioner Smith Charles.
Okay. This chart is exactly how I'm feeling, like we're gonna be left behind as external stakeholders. We don't even get a proper couple boxes over us, which lets me know already that we're probably gonna be left short. So my question is, how do you prioritize if the internal customers want something and the externals need something as well?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. Today, it's they have a very long master planning process. It's a 2-year process. It's very cumbersome. It's one of the greatest pain points of all our different departments. This will actually completely change that process because you will have a dedicated person. Today, you don't have a dedicated person that's working with you to try to figure out what your needs are in your prioritization. So we're gonna go from a very long, lengthy 2-year process into a really interactive process that's occurring day to day.
And then I think my final question is, there's been some things that the BOC on our website could make life easier for our residents.
Yep.
And when we inquire about how can we make that happen, we're on a chart and we're like, to your point, aloft in the wind, not sure like what happens next. And someone around here once said, we have the money. We could just buy it ourselves and do it ourselves. And then all of a sudden we get a new website that I don't know how many of you got to test before launch. I know I didn't, and it's not been a good experience. So again, it's just like, I don't know, are we building the plane while we're flying this thing, or how's this?
Yeah, I mean, those are all very fair questions, and more importantly, it's exactly the same themes that I've heard. Let me just be very clear. There isn't ever an IT organization that is big enough and it has enough money to do everything, right? So the real key is, how do we do those things that are the most important for our clients? And today, we're not structured this way. We have nobody, because today, when you have a request, it goes into an Excel spreadsheet, right? And it comes across everybody else, and it's a very long manual process. Tomorrow, with the BRM, you now have a name. And somebody that's working with you day to day to try to figure out what are those most critical things and working on your behalf to getting them in and out of IT. And that's really what the BRM role is intended to do. Today, to be very frank with you, we're built on very bureaucratic internal processes, and we're not customer focused. And this changes us from a very internal bureaucratic process-oriented organization to a very customer-oriented, customer-driven IT organization. And again, I'm not saying the IT organization is a bad organization. It's an organizational culture and an organizational process that has been in here for many, many years. This is just part of transforming it to become more customer-focused.
I like that, and this is actually the last one. About the information security officer, it's almost like, you know, you hire someone to property manage for you, and you give them the keys and the access codes and everything, and then 2-3 years later, you're not happy with their work, and you have to fire them, and then you're like, did they put some tripwires or back doors that they're, you know, as soon as they leave out the door, everything's deleted. So do we have checks and balances to just assure Oakland County's safety, even though we need security officers, but sometimes they're the smartest one in the room and can write you out of your own stuff, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna let Rod speak to that, because Rod is not only our CIO, but he is a security professional as well, a certified security professional. So I'll let Rod speak to that.
All right, so I think that is a risk. So with IT and cybersecurity, it's the whole thing is really about risk management in a sense, right? The way that the work of the security group gets done is through the other areas in IT. So, you know, one of the examples we've been talking about most recently, patching. So patching is critical to do vulnerability management. The security folks don't actually do the patching, it's the network or the server team.
Okay.
So we've got to put requests into the ticket system that goes to the server team, they're the ones that implement the patching. So most of the things that we do in cybersecurity is executed by a different team. So in that sense, there's a check and balance. Now, is it possible that you could have a rogue security person? Sure. And there's, I guess the problem with cybersecurity is there's no such thing as full security, right? So we take measures to try to reduce our risk, but the risk never does go to zero. And years ago, you know, if you think about server administration, there's a small number of people that have access to all the systems because we need it to be able to do the jobs, right? But those people also can have access to information. And, you know, at some point, you know, you have to trust folks to do their jobs. We can have systems that monitor, you know, and we're working on a privileged access management thing that's in our pipeline that will do some additional logging and monitoring to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do, and then have the security team probably review that. So there are checks and balances, but it's nothing's foolproof.
And I would tell you from an outside perspective, you have a very strong cybersecurity team here with your CTO, TJ, and the team that's underneath that and how they're working. I've been impressed by that part of the organization.
Thank you.
Good to know. Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, if I heard you right, you both said this is cost neutral, but it will cost $19,000 this year and then $84,000 a year ongoing.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm so glad, because that was supposed to be the last part of my presentation.
Cool.
So, and I forgot it. So
Okay,
thank you for keeping me honest. We're gonna make those reductions through reducing our contractual services. So, it'll be overall cost neutral as we reduce our contractual services. So we do obviously use outside vendors and consultants and those type of things, and we will reduce that to make sure that there is no financial impact.
Oh, great.
It's a great question though, thank you. I forgot all about it because I know we have some different numbers in a couple of these documents, and that's probably been a little confusing as well. But that's how we're gonna make sure it's cost neutral.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the 5 positions that will be deleted, is anyone losing their job? And if so, why?
Yeah, nope, nobody is losing their job.
Great.
Commissioner Powell.
And you may have said this, but with this reorg chart, no one's losing a job. But are these, you may have said this, I just missed it. Is it these new positions? Or is these just redesigning the department itself and the positions are already filled?
Yeah, no, it is redesigning it, the 5 new positions.
New, okay.
Yeah, they are new, and then we're eliminating 5 current positions to make sure that it's a net neutral part of the organization.
Okay, so net neutral, physical body. We're there, or you have to shop, you're gonna okay.
Yeah.
The next question to this that may just kind of bring full circle.
Yeah.
I just wanna know, how competitive is it gonna be to fill those positions? Because one thing we know, since we sat in these chairs, that was one of the big things. IT was having difficulty finding that qualification of employment to come even fill these positions. And then that's why we did the comm study, to try to be more competitive in the
Yep.
pay. Because we were missing that top tier people that we really need to run. So my question is that all rectified? Like,
Yep.
where are we at with that?
And
Because we
Michelle?
can have a grand plan, but if we can't fill the positions, it's not gonna move.
Yep.
200 grand a year.
That's a great.
I mean, the money's there, but still, it's a competitive market. I know in this, trying to find people is very competitive.
Yeah, that's a great question, Commissioner. And so
Sorry,
in this
not brain
process, I'm Heather Mason with the Human Resources Department.
Oh, good.
And in this process, working with Ken and Rod on this restructuring, we looked at, the salary ranges for these positions to see how competitive they would be with the market and ensure with information technology that we could attract the talent for any vacant positions that they have that they need.
Okay.
We kind of let them lead the vision
Okay.
and made sure we could, rationalize
Eventually.
the salary ranges,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
That's all I,
No,
we ain't putting a plan, we can't fill the positions and pay them.
your point is extremely valid, especially in the IT world.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They're still gonna be difficult to fill though.
I know that, but
don't wanna-
we're competitive to data negotiations before, you can't even, it's embarrassing to even bring them before us,
That's exactly right.
cause we couldn't pay them. Okay.
Anybody else? So related to that, you're eliminating 5 positions, you're adding 5 positions. Nobody's getting laid off, but do we have the people to fill those 5 positions, or are we gonna be looking out and hoping for attrition? How does this work? Are you just moving the same 5 people into different seats, or are they going somewhere else and you're filling with new people? What's your plan?
I can kind of speak to part of that. Currently, the IT supervisor position is vacant. And that's why we're eliminating that to assist with the funding for that.
Okay.
I believe
Yep,
the
all the-
infrastructure and services director
Is vacant.
and one business relationship manager position will be posted, correct?
Correct.
There'll be those 2 vacancies that'll need to be filled.
But everybody else comes from within the organization into these new seats.
I believe so, yeah.
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 Yes, yeah, I feel like there were positions that we had open that were not filled that were reassigned to this. I think that's really the question,
Yeah,
right? Like, where is this coming, because of the
Yes,
people thing?
yes.
So yeah, we had open spots that weren't filled, and so now those spots are going away to pay for these other positions. So no one's getting displaced. There's 2 folks that are moving into the different roles, but then the other ones will be hired. So.
Okay, good, thank you. Anybody else on this? I will just say, I think we're all happy to hear that IT is taking a new look at their structure and how to do things better, because I think every single one of us has had an issue or 2 along the way, so it's good. It's time to, it's such a big, wide-ranging, difficult topic for people who don't understand
Exactly.
what it really requires, that it is good that we're kind of churning this whole thing and looking at what makes sense moving forward. So I'm happy to see you doing this. The fact that it's cost neutral makes me happy too. So Commissioner Powell?
One more thing, it was Mr. Timms, right, who was formerly with us. I just want to shout him out again because he had to fill some shoes and just try to deal with us commissioners as best as he could. And I just want to thank him for that, even though I know he's gone, but I just want to put it on record. So thank him. Thank you for that.
That's true. Commissioner Smith Charles?
Yeah, thank you. Since Commissioner Powell got a question in real quick, I just wanted to ask Chair and Finance Committee, you know, in a month or so, we'll be around this table talking about budgets. And inevitably, at least as far as the last 2 years I've been here, it's always cut something. You know, they always have to find 3%, find 5%. And sometimes it just feels like we do this, we say okay, and then we'll see you guys back in August and you're like, we gotta reduce, we gotta move people, la 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 la. So I'm just curious, our big picture as finance, is that just how it works here? Like it's in May, you may hire, but you're told in July you gotta cut. And, just to bring the budget to a balance. Is that pretty much what's
Last year, the past 2 years, there's been the 4% cut. And if the departments took it all at once, then they didn't have to take it again.
Okay.
And so those two, I think the 2-year process of making that happen to bring the budget in balance is complete this year.
Okay.
I don't think that's gonna happen again, unless somebody knows something I don't, and that's very possible.
Well, if we're priming for budget, since we're talking about it, it was 4% for most departments, right? I think the sheriff was 1.5 of their person at 1.5. Everyone else was 4, or 7% if you did it all at once. So some would argue, had a bigger bite than others.
But timing wise, I think
it's
this
all
year
done.
it's done
Yeah.
with the fiscal year that we're in.
Good. Because I really like us to keep our staff in, so that they can have some consistency. Having just gone through a refi, I know 2 years worth of employment is important, and it can really change everything for folks. So thank you for highlighting that.
Okay. Commissioner Powell?
In the meantime, that's a good question that at the end, when we, I think, have our budget, if we can, Chair, just have them touch base on that, to give us an update. Is we done, are we finished? Or is there gonna be some surprises this year? So, for us to know, finance.
Michael, make
Yes,
sure
Commissioner,
that
absolutely.
question gets asked.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else for the IT folks? All right, seeing no one, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
She should know. Like, no.
It's 20,000.
Oh, by the way.
By the way, we gotta take it back.
That's long.
Because otherwise I'll take it.
So then we have all these ones, go ahead.
You have 8 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, motion carries. Now, we have all these extensions that are all IT. Do we wanna talk about them? I'm gonna ask you, do you wanna talk about them individually? Or do you want us to talk about them as a big
I mean,
topic?
they're separate, but I think we could do them as a packet. Even though, I mean, it's all the same type of.
You guys,
Yeah, that's fine.
is that fine with you, everybody?
Yeah, 'cause we have to
Okay,
Okay,
today.
the floor is yours.
great,
So let me just say, we're talking about item 9D, E, F, G, and H, which are all extensions of existing contracts.
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Commissioner
9D,
Weipert, supported by Commissioner Powell. Okay,
Okay, so before we dive into these, I've started working with the team to see if there's a way that we could do kind of quicker RFPs so that we don't have to do so many of these extensions. The bucket that these kind of fall into are systems that either we've had for a long time or systems that are more deeply integrated in the environment, so they're costly to rip out. But that being said, we don't wanna get ourselves into a position where we're just extending for multiple decades because then the technology gets stale, right? And it doesn't give people that kind of open competitive thing. So some of the friction around this has been that the kind of the RFP process that we have been using is very thorough and it's lengthy, and so we have to pull people off of doing work to put the RFPs together. large bids come in, they have to be evaluated. So I think for some of these, we could either just bid out the support, or if it's something larger like a Microsoft or a Workday that we're not gonna, it's be very costly to remove, we just put those constraints into the quick bid RFP and say, okay, so we, if we're gonna go with another product, we have to have the training covered, we have to have the integration covered, and we'll see what the market has to say about it. I would expect that in most cases, the cost that they would have to put in upfront would exceed, the same reasons why we're reluctant to do the integration is why the private sector would be unable to meet the bid. So long story short, I'd like to see if we could get these bid out in a kind of a quick RFP, shorter way so that we have less of these exceptions moving forward. But we're not quite there yet, but that's kind of my list of things to do. So the first one today is this Telesoft. So this is, we've had this for 24-ish years. It's a piece of software that does the tracking of the telecom expenses so that we can bill it back to the departments. So that's kind of the primary function of that. It's a super back office-y thing, and I've been talking with Kyle a little bit about, potentially changing the way that IT does the chargebacks to simplify it. So this might be something that we could kind of put into, I think Kyle refers to it as indirects. This might be something that we could put into a, run IT as a, just kind of as a business, give us a lump of money for that so that we don't have such detailed. My concern always is the internal cost of tracking this and billing it back greater than the value of it. I want to make sure that we have transparency. I've kicked off a kind of a third-party IT cost benchmark so we can see, where's our spend relative to, other counties of our size. So that's kind of a move forward thing that I'm going to try to work with financial services on to see if we can simplify some of this. But in the meantime, we've got to kind of stay the course. So that's the Telesoft piece. The second one, so Okta, some of you may be familiar. So it's our two-factor authentication, increase the cybersecurity. Okta has a preferred reseller, which is Carahsoft. I think even if we were to bid this out, there'd likely be one bidder. So to avoid the expense for the squeeze for no juice, we're looking to extend that. And again, Okta's been working well for us. We have some, we're rolling out this Open Sesame thing so you can do a biometric piece to make the login easier. So far, I think we've been pretty satisfied with that. So that's that one. The Esri is our GIS software. So this is it's a big piece of the infrastructure. I believe that part of this agreement gives the web access to the CVTs for free. So I think we've got other, other entities that are able to leverage some of this. Again, it's, they're a market leader in the space. I think there's other solutions, but they're kind of the heavyweight. It's unlikely that we would, diversify from them. But again, if I could do a quick bid for the maintenance of this, I think it would be helpful. But, in the meantime, we're looking for an extension on that. The Leads Online was new to me, so the rest of these, except for the first one I hadn't heard of, but this one I hadn't heard of. So this is pawn shops to track stolen merchandise, I guess. So some of this is to help the sheriffs with insurance fraud. If somebody says that their gun was stolen and then they go to a different state and they try to pawn the gun, this Leads Online collects all of that together and does reporting back so that people can be arrested. So we actually squeezed them a little bit during the negotiations for this, and we got some cost savings moving forward. So we had we smoothed out the kind of the inflation factor across the 5 years, and we got some additional, another 4% off on that. So that one was, I think, solid. This Elevon, so this does the credit card processing for us for the G2G. Longer term, I think we've got some thoughts about how maybe to work this differently, but in the meantime, we need to keep our credit card processor intact to help with the transition. So that's kind of in a nutshell the five of those. Yes, a lot of hands.
Okay. Commissioner Rahman.
My only question is the last one, the Elevon. How competitive is their rate right now? I know there's several different players when it comes to credit card processing. We have a small business ourselves, so this is something we're reevaluating constantly.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what the rate is on this, but our thought would be that moving forward as we kind of think about the future of this is to maybe get multiple providers that could that we kind of load balance across for this, and then, have them kind of take a look and see if they can help us with the integrations. I don't know what the percentage is.
And how long have we been with Elavon?
Yeah.
No, since 19.
Yeah, it says after 5 years of previous renewal, so it looks like at least 5 years. I think this probably goes back to the start of the G2G, whenever that was, but I think.
Because there are, and again, it may be different, obviously as a county, it's a much bigger scale than any mom and pop operation, but I know there are many players in this area, and I just wanna make sure that that's something that the county is regularly checking in on to make sure that.
Because they charge the client, so they
Well, and
won't
just-
care as much.
Just to reinforce, Rod's comment, that this is an extension to allow us to go out and rebid it.
Oh.
So that's exactly what they're doing,
You know what I'm
right?
saying? They
Is
put the
you're
cap on
you're
us.
exactly right. This market is commoditized, and so prices are going down quite frequently. So yes, the idea here is to extend it enough to put it back out and do exactly what Rod talked about, and that is not only to rebid it, but to get multiple vendors in there at the same time, so it becomes even more competitive. We can drive that price point down.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, thank you.
Just on that point, that is true, but the county, we charge the clients too, that fee, don't we? That's a big difference from a small business. We don't, so you look more competitively. So I agree with you. I wanna get competitive and not just charge the $4.95, fee just because we're comfortable charging it to the person. Let's get it down there where it's competitive with other businesses. So I agree.
Commissioner Cavell,
Thanks. I think Yolanda was first, so.
go ahead.
Cool.
I know you wanna get out of here, so
Thanks,
that's
yeah, I
why
have to-
I'm calling on you.
Thank you, appreciate it. I have to step out for a work call. So real quick to that about the fees. For whatever it's worth, when you go back to do the RFP committee or whatever,
I guess that.
is part of that seeing what the cost is to Oakland County residents in terms of like if you go to the
I'm not
clerk's
sure if
office.
it's $4.95. I just threw
Whatever
that
it is,
out there.
there's always
It is a
something.
fee, right?
There's
It
always
is kinda
something,
high.
just for whatever it's worth, it'd be nice to see if
Figure
people
that
could
out.
have an interaction with the government then that didn't have added on fees at
Correct.
checkout. Just,
Yeah.
that's just more of a statement than a question. But a question I did have was, so there's, I believe it was the Carasoft, which is a 5-year extension with an option for another 5 years. Could you talk more about the theory of why we would give you a 10-year contract? Like, I know you were kind of priming us for that in your kind of preamble, but like, should we expect to see a lot of that? Is that good for saving the county money? What about the board's prerogative or power as the purse holders,
Yeah, for sure, yeah, and so I think with this one specifically for, the two-factor authentication, there's a lot of integration that's behind that. Not to say that we can't undo it, and if there's some technology that, happens, in fewer than 10 years, totally open to moving to that. I think it's just that we wanted the 5 years with an option just in case the market doesn't mature. Sometimes technology gets to a point where like Microsoft Word, right? So they come up with new versions of it, but it's not dramatically different from the versions we've had before. So if this is still working and it's kind of good enough, it's possible that the cost of ripping it out and replacing it with something that's kind of in parity wouldn't be there. So I think this just gives the option for that, but.
Should we expect to see a lot more of things like that coming from you? Because what we experienced with Mike Tim was a lot of these, like you were mentioning, extensions because there's 2 companies that do this for the skill that we need.
Yeah, well, so this rebidding thing that I talked about, it may just be that we have the 2 bidders, right? But at least I think it's important to go through the process so that we're not just continually extending without being like conscious about it, right? So I think if we're intentional about our extension, I think that's fine. I think it's good to cross-check the market just to make sure that, what we think is there. Now, the flip side of this is that there's some risk. And I don't know how much of this will be realized, but some of the vendors have kind of informally said, hey, if you're gonna make us go out to bid, we're gonna raise the price.
Yeah, right.
Well, in some ways, we could try to negotiate that back down, but in other ways, I think that it's, some of this is just the nature of public sector, right? So it's, I guess if the cost increases when we rebid, that's kind of the cost of doing the bids, I suppose.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Whiteburn.
Leads online, you save $500,000 over 5 years, so you.
We did. I mean, some of the smaller vendors, I think, are a little more flexible when we say, hey, there's value to you. The larger companies have, groups of people that just respond to these RFPs, so we're not really saving them that much. And they also, they like to exercise their market dominance to not, be as flexible. So sometimes we can get a victory, other times it's more difficult.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiber. Commissioner Powell?
Two things. What is G to G? What is that? Or is that in just your language?
No, that's the Oakland County thing. That's the government to government. That was-
Oh, you
For the
kept saying G.
municipalities.
It's fine, I just
Yeah.
wanna know what, I'm like, what's G to G? You
Yeah,
keep saying
from
G.
here to like your
And then,
Pontiac.
is any of this gonna improve or help, Property Gateway operate better?
No.
Okay, well, can I at least put that out there to IT? Property Gateway needs some help. I've had city staff try to get in and they gotta like log out, log back on twice. And then I've even tried to look at stuff for numbers and some days it works, some days it's not. So I just want to put it on IT radar. Property Gateway needs some help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Anybody else? Okay, if no one else has anything to add to this, let's go ahead and vote. Prompt the vote. And this is, it says Elevon credit card services, but it's really all of these down to item H.
Oh, and when I said city staff, that's City of Pontiac staff. They have at logins and stuff to deal with it and they've been having issues. So that's how it got brought to my attention. Yeah, just so y'all know.
Okay, yeah.
Number of yeas or nays?
All right, motion carries. So all of those extensions have been approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh.
Not TV, but like.
It's online.
Okay. Next up, item 9I, sponsorship of the 2023 Arts Beats and Eats Festival in the city of Royal Oak. Motion by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Powell. All right, so.
Nothing new.
Yeah, nothing new.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a comment about this. The chairman's not here and he'll probably be mad at me for doing this, but as we talk about special projects for commissioners, it's always been sort of a one-time deal, a special thing, or if it's something like gonna be ongoing, we start and then we find people to sponsor years going forward, somebody else takes it over. That's been pretty typical of how the special projects have gone. This one, we've been sponsoring Arts Beats and Eats for quite a number of years, and it's not a small number. It doesn't really so I'm gonna support this, obviously, I think we all are, but I think I would like to look at the county finding a better way to institutionalize our support of Arts Beats and Eats, rather than just have it come out of the Board of Commissioners General Fund, special projects. That's my take on it. Does Commissioner Powell?
And also, are we even aware if there's any perks for our county staff or us or in these sponsorships, like any perks, like in trade-off with this?
I can certainly
okay, like-
speak to the fact that in the contracts, we make sure that the county is being promoted. And if there are, there's rarely ever ticketed events for the events that we're sponsoring. So it's not like we're asking for a certain number of tickets or anything like that. It's mainly the promotion of the County Board of Commissioners, the use of the logo, how it'll be used. And with each of these sponsorships, within the invoice or the agreement, Andrea and myself make sure it lays out exactly what we'll be getting for that. So certainly if you ever wanted to follow up on one of these projects, we can get you a copy of that agreement. And if you were looking for anything in particular for a project, we can certainly make sure it's in that agreement before it's signed.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Ice cream cone.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
All right, let's go ahead and prompt the vote on this.
Okay, move until they get going.
Do you agree with my statement?
Yes.
Yes.
Of
Madam
course.
Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Arts Beats and Eats is on again. All right. Next up, item 10A from the Public Health and Safety Committee acceptance from the Office of National Drug Control Policy for the 2023 high-intensity drug trafficking areas. Need a motion? Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Okay, good morning, good afternoon.
Grant looks bigger.
Yeah, we just, Weipert, Hoffman. It's okay. All right,
Good afternoon.
morning.
This is our acceptance of the annual HIDA grant for $132,300. There's no match for this grant and it's primarily used for overtime for our narcotics investigators, and there's a small portion for communications.
After all that time sitting here waiting. I wish we could get more money.
Yeah.
So do we.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions?
Sorry, I went out of order.
Sorry.
It's no match to them, $132,000 is nothing to sneeze at, it helps, right?
A lot of stuff come through today where we haven't had to match.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess I do have a question, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Smith-Charles.
Is the four-letter word overtime, I just wanted to ask you, is $132,000 a drop in the bucket? Will it help out tremendously? And then if you just overall are having people have to do more overtime, are those things we can be chewing on over the next couple of months to figure out how to make that better? Because some people don't like overtime because it's extra work for them.
Well, this is a specialized unit, so if you look at the attachment B, it has a list of all the participating other departments. So $132,000 does not go a long way. I mean, it's a small portion, but it goes back to the local units too, so.
Okay.
And then overtime in general is always a struggle for us, and we're still there. We have hired, though, there's a interesting fact. Since last June, we actually have to this June, 22 to 23, we have been able to hire 100 more deputies. So
Nice.
our vacancies are lower than probably they ever have been. So we're looking at a good trend. However, overtime is still an issue because we still have all kinds of overtime spots to fill. So we're seeing kind of a generational thing where younger folks maybe don't want as much overtime as the senior folks or
the seasoned. And then call me a complete novice, but is there a lot of high intensity drug trafficking happening in Oakland County?
That's funny.
I mean, you bring your personal experiences to the table, and therefore I have no idea about high intensity drug trafficking.
This money is specifically for our NET unit, narcotics enforcement team, and they're busy.
Yeah, wow. All right.
Can you just give us a little example or rundown or?
I don't have any specific numbers, but they have a lot of cases. It's all over the county. They work with other jurisdictions. It's a county team, so we have other departments. It's not just the sheriff's office. We go off into other areas as needed based on where the leads follow. But I think we're the highest producer in this area for HIDA.
Okay, Commissioner Rahman.
Are there some places that are, I'm sure there are, but is there anything of late that is maybe a little bit more of a surprise, or you're finding that there's more challenges than you would have otherwise anticipated?
Not really. It's spread out around the county. There's no one real higher area. I mean, there's some higher areas, but you think it's not happening here, and then we get a case there.
Yeah.
Madam Chair. Again, this may not be something you can speak to, but the little Narcan vending machines, they made it sound like it was Oakland County, like first in the state to have like these stations.
We have it in our jail, yes.
That's not a Oakland County government initiative with those little vending machines for the Narcan. Just wanted to understand that. And so when we talk about high intensity drug trafficking, is that just selling drugs? Is that drug sales? Like people selling illegal drugs? Is that what trafficking is? I guess I'm not familiar with that as about human trafficking.
Right.
And again, I'm gobsmacked that we have high intensity drug trafficking here in Oakland County. I don't know why, but we're not a border,
75.
We're not
I was just about to say, girl, what do you mean?
I'm just saying. But thank you, Chair, for letting me know.
And there's also messing with you.
The money here.
And,
Money
yeah,
here.
we got
We
money.
got money here.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people have too much money, don't know what to do with
such
it.
thing.
Much do they say.
They don't know what to do with it.
Because we just had the medical control authority here earlier today.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, maybe there's a partnership brewing.
It's funny. Yeah. Okay, anybody else have anything for these folks? Okay, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Thank you.
We have 7 yeas,
Sit
0
there all that
nays.
time.
Motion carries, thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're getting there. Next are the items out of Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee. Item 11A, Clinton River Water Resource Recovery Facility Optimization Project. I need a motion. Commissioner Smith Charles. Commissioner Whitebird supports. We have Mr. Lockhart from Water Resources on the screen, so welcome.
Welcome. We should also have with us Laura Bass from Dickinson Wright, our bond counsel, and also Steve Burke from MSCI, our financial advisor.
Thank you. Okay. Excellent.
There you go.
We're ready.
Thank you, committee members. Yeah, we're here to ask for full faith and credit for the optimization project. There's 2 phases to this project. One is to upgrade the electrical system that's antiquated and we can't get parts for it. Also with that is to get rid of about 10 generators that are scattered throughout the facility, centralize the power capacity, the power service, along with the generators, providing 2 diesel generators, and also the exciting part is providing 2 biogas to energy generators. We're gonna try to utilize those that burns the biogas is currently a byproduct of the wastewater process that we flare it off, or when feasible, use it in our boilers for our candy system. That's a process that heats up the biosolids and reduces their volumes. And also a second part of it, which is to optimize the hydraulic capacity, and that's at the demand of the state of Michigan's EGLE department, because the thing is limited in the secondary treatment of its hydraulic capacity. So the bottleneck there has to be improved. And so the 75 million before you requested full faith credits for both projects in their entirety, so we'll be done in phases. And the first phase is electrical and cogen upgrades. So that way you have to answer any questions. Oh, one more thing to add. Our office did submit a request to the state of Michigan for a $30 million financing to the SRF department. And we hope that the first phase of the project will fall within that. So with that, I think we have a 1.87% interest rate along with 10% principal forgiveness.
Okay.
Good, we heard
Okay,
this
I'll
one.
open it up to questions from the floor. Anybody have any questions?
We're all here, so let's hurry and vote.
Yeah. Whatever Whitebird said earlier, those were great questions.
Commissioner Hoffman, you weren't here, and Commissioner Powell for the presentation earlier, so do you have any
Look at
questions
now,
for these folks?
she's on the spot to say I'm good.
I'm good. Thanks, Mom got me covered, I'm good.
Okay. Well, a little shorter presentation than the one in EDI, but it's all right.
Yeah, we asked stuff, so.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote.
I trust you. You know I trust you, I'm all right.
Yeah, I'll do this.
It passed unanimously out of EDI.
Yeah. That's why I told her she was good.
I'm not trusting.
Oh, it didn't come up yet, but she knows, Pam, you're working on it. Yeah, no problem, that is,
Look at those Wonder Woman nails.
yeah, here she goes. Cute.
Woo, I'm close. Thank you, Jesus. I got a long day today.
I'm sure you have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, cool. Next, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good
Thank you.
afternoon.
She will go, sure. Okay.
And then thank you for them waiting so long.
Yes. All right, next up is item 11B, the 2023 Interim Local Transportation Reimbursement Program. Moved by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you for waiting.
Yeah, thanks for waiting so long.
Sorry. I thought she was gonna hop on the transit out here and get out of here.
She said she brought these folks to see how the Board of Commissioners operate. I'm not,
Yeah.
okay. We're not always really interesting. All right, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm Kristen Melting with Oakland County in the Planning Division. And with me, I have Sarah Lugpocken. She's with the Transit Division, a planner. Before you today is an interlocal agreement for the Transportation Reimbursement Program. This is an interim program just for 2023 for communities that were not provided service with the transit providers named in the millage, NODA, WODA, OPC, or SMART. These communities are primarily in the northwest part of the county and the southwest part of the county. There were 20 eligible communities and we received 8 applications. And back in February, the Board of Commissioners approved the program and also appropriated $500,000. We received those 8 applications from the eligible communities. And we are also requesting an additional appropriation of $351,415 to the program to cover the amount of requested funds from the program applications. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you very much. I have one question. This reimbursement now is dollar for dollar,
It is.
right? There's no limit on it. I mean, we're allocating so much money, but their costs are their cost and they all pay property tax out there. So will these different groups receive reimbursement for what they spend?
That's correct, yep, so if you look at the Schedule B, we have an approved reimbursement amount that came from the applications from the communities, but we also have a 5% contingency in there.
A what?
A 5% contingency.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Yep, so if a community does experience an increase in ridership, they can petition the Transit Division Manager for additional funds out of that contingency fund,
Okay,
but it is dollar for dollar.
All right, thank you. And as time goes on and ridership increases, they'll need more reimbursement,
No, because then it's gonna go under the.
right?
But, so again, this is just an interim program for
Then the county's
2023.
taking over.
We're hoping that our local transit providers will be able to pick up those communities and provide service to them. NODA, WODA, OPC, SMART, so that we won't need this
It'll be run
program.
through the county,
Yeah, it'll-
not through the municipality's budget.
Okay,
It'll go
and
through
then
the existing contracts.
the reimbursement does not include any administration fees? Or is that included in there? That's just part of the cost of doing business that would be reimbursed?
So there are eligible expenses, and I believe like the drivers, fuel costs, some communities. There's 2 different types of communities. We've got some that use People's Express, which is a third-party provider, and they charge the community as a per-trip cost. And then we have other communities like Brandon Township where they operate a service through their senior center. So they would be eligible for like fuel cost reimbursements, any insurance costs that are part of the program. So those are eligible expenses.
Okay, but like WODA, for example, there's a lot of costs to do with transportation besides the cost of the driver, the cost of fuel, insurance, whatever else.
Yep.
I mean, it should all be reimbursable, shouldn't it?
So within the applications themselves, each community provided us with the breakdown of their individual programs.
Okay, and I'm sorry I didn't read that, but I just wanna make sure that all the costs are included, but if they did the application, they know what they're talking about.
They do, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and prompt the vote then.
Okay, you kept looking at you, I'm like, let's make sure that our partner's okay with this. That's his area, that's their babies over there. I was looking to see like,
Yeah,
okay, they
some of
okay
mine.
with it, yeah.
Yeah, I know this is gonna satisfy some of the communities like mine where they felt like, okay, we just passed this transit, but we're doing this off on the side.
We're already doing it, yeah.
Closes that gap
Yes.
until the bigger millage plan is implemented, and I think that's very helpful toward getting community support for what we want to do going forward with the millage. So we
Gives some time.
took away the resistance of some of the officials who might think there's nothing in it for us. Yeah, here's reimbursements for what you're already doing. So that's really a great start, very positive, I think, so. Anyway,
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
thank you. Motion carries, we're all set.
Thank you.
Next up, we have another public comment, our second. Is there anybody here who cares to address us?
Next year.
Seeing no one, I will close public comment, and unless there's any other business to bring before the Finance Committee, I will call this meeting adjourned at 12:26.